Welcome to Just Disserts, the podcast where we talk with scholars who have successfully defended their dissertations and earned the title of doctor. Each episode explores the research behind the work, the journey to the defense, and the lessons learned along the way, from first proposal to final approval. Whether you're in the middle of your own dissertation or reflecting on the path you've already taken, these are the stories behind the scholarship. Welcome to Just Disserts, proof that suffering can be peer-reviewed.
All right, welcome back to Just Desserts, where we break down doctoral dissertations into meaningful conversations that inspire and inform. I'm joined today by Dr. Sophie von Laer to talk about your doctoral program and dissertation experience. Sophie, you investigated the relationship between servant leadership and employee intrapreneurship. In your research, you argued that organizations need employees who act like entrepreneurs internally, or intrapreneurs, people who innovate, challenge the status quo, create new value. And that key question became in your dissertation whether servant leadership, a style focused on empowering and supporting employees, helps foster that behavior. So welcome, Sophie.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, of course. So, Sophie, I thought as I was going through the doctoral experience, I found so many YouTube clips and information about how to further my dissertation, how to write certain parts of chapters when I was stuck. And I think where I was always struggling is to find more about the human part of the experience and how people were experiencing their doctoral program and balancing work and life commitments and that kind of thing. And so I put together this podcast and this YouTube series to try to dive into a little bit further and in hopes it'll help others. So that's what we're going to jump into today.
Well, Sean, thank you for doing this because I honestly think that this is one of the most isolating and lonely experiences one can experience, especially after coursework is done. You find yourself a little bit in a valley of doubt.
Yeah.
And there's a lot that needs to be done emotionally, mentally, and working on your resilience to get it done. So thank you for doing that.
Of course, of course. So tell us a little bit about your journey and what did you study as an undergraduate and how did that lead you eventually into your master's in the doctoral program?
Absolutely. So my undergrad, I went to George Mason University. Very much in love with that university in its way that it operates, and it actually lent itself to me eventually doing the topic that I did. It's a highly entrepreneurial, experiential environment. There is a degree of co-creation and co-direction with the professors. I studied electrical engineering, so very fast got into a more of a technical career. And then I did systems engineering for my master's degree. My first ever job was with Northrop Grumman. I live in DC area, so a lot of jobs are within the defense intelligence arena. So it's not unheard of to end up in Northrop Grumman. My first client was Federal Aviation Administration. From then, I got my security clearance and worked for General Dynamics. And soon I found myself in leadership positions. So as an engineer, I wasn't very equipped with the human side of things. And I was aware of it, thankfully, unlike most engineers, no disrespect to my kind. I was aware of my lack of emotional intelligence and when especially things get very complex in social settings. To improve that, I started taking a lot of leadership management courses. I got a PMP, but it wasn't enough. And I felt I got to do something bigger. And somehow ended up applying for a PhD program. Wasn't entirely sure what university as far as the faith-based aspect of it. I really liked IWU's leadership presence, and I knew they do a fantastic job and they go deeply into it. I wanted my degree to mean something, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. And I got into IWU and start to understand that there is more to this university than meets the eye.
Yeah, sure. So maybe like you as well, I went to secular universities for my undergrad and graduate programs, ones that weren't religiously affiliated. So I was really intimidated by going to a doctoral program initially. And I don't know about you, but I certainly had imposter syndrome for that first week and wondered, whether I was Christian enough to be in this university,
Oh
whether,
yeah.
I was fearing having to lead prayer at the beginning of classes and not having, practiced that many times. And so how was that for you in overcoming that?
I mean, between you and I have a very extreme false confidence in anything. I'm the type of person that has failed intentionally so much.
Hmm.
I was actually giving a lecture in GMU yesterday, and I told my students the first time I went on a job interview, and it was with Lockheed Martin. Again, not surprising from the area that I live in.
Hmm.
They had to call an ambulance because I was so terrified and
Hmm.
had a full-on panic attack that I'm gonna fail that I eventually ended up really poorly performing and embarrassing myself.
Hmm.
But I remember I kept doing it to the extent that the last interviews I've ever had, I felt very much like the spirit of game on.
Hmm.
I can make this happen. I mean, worst case, it's not going to work out, but I get something out of it and I'm
Yeah.
going to learn about myself. So, walking into IWU as far as academic, getting it done or figuring it out, I had a false confidence,
Hmm.
as most people don't. I was like, I'm going to make it happen. Like, worst case is like, I have to study, I guess, it's
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
But as far as the fate aspect of it or just belonging, I was terrified. I
Hmm.
was very, very. The first orientation, Dr. Reneker got up there and gave us a very serious speech about what could go wrong. A lot of people have heard that speech. It's a
Hmm.
rather, terrifying speech, and he does it intentionally to make sure that you know what you're getting into. So I appreciate his authenticity and honesty and transparency. It really shook me in my boots.
Hmm.
And the way that I felt this, just not just what he said as far as the effort, but the philosophy behind it felt so unfamiliar to me that I had to ask him to talk to me after that session and tell me if it's okay. I was like, hey, so I don't know if you know, but I'm actually Muslim, and I'm not entirely sure if you knew that when you accepted my application.
Hmm.
And he exercised a lot of grace and reassured me that you belong no matter what, you're fine. If you need help with anything spiritual formation wise, I'm here for you. And he was. He really, 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 I could take him up on that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So before entering the program, like I know you talked about how much you liked your undergraduate. Was it your
Yeah.
undergraduate? Yeah, program.
Yeah.
Who were some of your early influences? Like, do you have memorable instructors or professors
I
that encouraged
do.
you?
I do. I do. My favorite person was Dr. Natalia Picciotto. Shout out to her. She knows how much I love her.
Mhm.
She's Brazilian. She came in from Stanford. The first year she came, I found her quirky, interesting, curious, a little odd, but genius. And I became very obsessed by the way that she goes about life and
Uh,
experimentation. And I started reading her research papers, and she was working on brain. So she was working on making the right nanocarbon electrode to implant in one's brain
wow.
to cure Alzheimer's and Parkinson disease
Hmm.
in the hippocampus to be exact. And I was like, "Hey, can I help?" She was like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah. Can I
Yeah.
can I like be there around you?" And she gave me a job as a research assistant, and I worked for a few months after school in her lab in the basement, decapitating rats.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Never ate meat after. So we would implant electrodes in the brain
Hmm.
and then extract the RNA, mRNA to make sure that it didn't change someone's RNA as a result of the electrode implantation. As she published a paper as a result of it, it became a very, very huge, groundbreaking a part of the science of changing how people view Alzheimer's disease, to be exact. She was very kind to include the little me on the papers.
Amazing.
But I found myself in an environment, Sean, that was so uncomfortable. The smell of rats, the
Mhm.
environment was humid, and a lot of, as you can imagine, things that was flying around.
Yeah.
But her trusting me, she had this attitude of, hey, you can figure it out. Like, here's you have like 4 seconds to do this, or the animal has been sacrificed for no reason.
Hmm.
And to me, the amount of trust that she had that I would figure it out, she would give me a map of the brain, a piece of paper, find hippocampus. And I was very anxious, but her trust made me trust myself.
Wow.
So someone trusts me knowing that I would probably fail, make me feel like, well, maybe I can model the same relationship with myself. And I never had anyone trusting me to that extent ever in my life and telling me, I believe you get it eventually.
Wow. Do you think
So
this
it
is
was
a
huge.
teaser for why you selected the dissertation topic on entrepreneurship and
Yes.
yeah, that you
Yes.
did? Wow.
Yes. I think the same servant leadership that she showed in being so thoughtful of my emotional, mental, spiritual growth, because it did confidence in yourself as a spiritual thing, knowing eventually it leads to knowing that you're a child of God.
Hmm.
Confidence is a precursor to denying the world and standing on your own, attached to Christ. That was the beginning for me to know there is value to my existence.
Hmm.
But that came from her very humble, honest servant leadership philosophy and approach and disposition towards life, and also encouraging experimentation and taking initiative and failing and risking,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It
yeah.
was a playground.
I love it. So you get into the IW doctoral program. Tell us a little bit about the coursework experience for you. So it's 3 years of
Yeah.
coursework leading up to the dissertation. And again, you had that can-do attitude from the very beginning. So that wasn't seemingly the issue.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
any hardships or struggles along the way?
Coursework was actually pretty easy for me. So I didn't feel particularly, I mean, the only, I think, obstacle for me was I was expecting a degree of standardization in the requirements between professors. However, I came to realize that's a part of adult learning
Hmm.
to be emotionally agile enough to adapt to these changes and different personalities and
Hmm.
different requirements. I found that out later after much complaining uh, to,
Yeah.
to myself and others. But once I did found out that's part of like this disorienting dilemma,
Hmm.
as they call it in
Right.
transformative learning theory, is a part of building identity as a student, as a follower. I was okay with it, but I didn't have enough wisdom and humility at first to understand that.
Okay. Okay. So the 3 years of coursework, and then who were some of the big supporters during that time? I know, of course, getting ahead of your dissertation, certainly your parents are two of them, but and your husband, and
Yeah,
talk about
yeah.
maybe your cohort peers as well.
I mean, I think honestly, Dr. Reneke was very instrumental in a lot of it, and reassuring. But I really found Dr. Boitine one of the most emotionally grounding people that I've ever encountered in my life.
Hmm.
His way of praying has always been inspirational to me. The way he talks about his wife has been inspirational to me. The way he walks
Hmm.
is inspirational to me. His approach to life is inspirational to me. So I remember one time I sent him a message about me coming out as dyslexic because it was a shameful thing how I grew up.
Hmm.
And he wrote, I think, almost 3 pages of telling me to not feel shamed, just to free me from that.
Hmm.
So I think Dr. Boitine is someone I pray for so often
Hmm. Hmm.
because of
Likewise.
how he's done what he's done. Spiritual formation wise, Dr. Reneke has been a mentor. Another person that I met up with in DC several times and was instrumental in knowing that professors are people and they're cool and they're interesting. And I developed a close relationship with is Dr. Patricia Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
And her just she's this sophisticated, interesting person that I kind of got to know. And I really enjoyed her company. Dr. Barnes' tenacity and power scared me 90% of the time,
Mm-hmm.
but in a good way.
Yeah.
It was empowering.
Oh, that's
I
great.
really enjoyed that. So yeah, professors mainly. I'm the type that like I'm an only child, so I get very well along with grown-ups.
Mm-hmm.
So they were really good grown-ups in the program.
Yeah, that's great. So tell us, as you were getting close to the comp exam,
Yeah.
what were the feelings? Did you have all the feelings going through your
Ah,
body?
I I think in the comp exam, what I realized was that my false confidence of coming in thinking that, well, I get it. Like, just I would skim. Again, I'm being dyslexic. Reading wasn't the easiest thing for me. So it's like I created my own fast reading method before each session. I think I come to understand that there must have been a better way for me to somewhat memorize some of the concepts or frameworks.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been easier going into comp exam. And I think I studied for a good 3 months before.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a good part of it. I was highlighting and had everything printed out. I was highlighting things right and left and trying to connect dots.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt that I wasn't too prepared going into the preparation for comp exam. On my comp exam, I think I was 10 times better at this degree than I was prior.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just most people experience that, but I underestimated
Now I've
prep.
had some interviews where some had the oral version of the
Yeah,
presentation and then others had the written. Which were you? And did you
oral.
prefer oral? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
In retrospect, do you think you would have preferred the written or you did well in the oral presentation?
Again, I'm a stickler for standardization. I kind of like things to be somewhat even, fair,
Hmm.
across because some people had much, I don't want to call it easier, but somewhat of a friendlier professors. And some of us had, including myself, had like one of the more studious professors.
Uh-huh.
So I was lucky that Dr. Brenneker was running as somewhat of a second test in the background.
Hmm.
Might have saved me. But what I loved about oral, this was, I guess, what I don't like about it, but what I liked about oral is that there is a part of leadership that is requires for you to formulate ideas
Hmm.
and say them in a way that are resonating and meaningful. Emphasize the right words, the right phrases, the right concepts, and not be as convoluted, which might not come out in a written format.
Sure, sure. Leaders are often put in that position, right, where you don't have a lot
Right.
of time to sit down and sit back and formulate an email or a response. It's really
Yep.
important.
And be concise and be to the point and be somewhat of an influential character in the room.
Good. So when you got to the comp exam, do you recall that you already had your dissertation, sort of chapter one prospectus pretty well formulated by that point, or not so much?
I mean, I had an idea. I wanted to work on identity development, but
Hmm.
I come to realize that instruments that they aren't very developed instruments. I was a little bit ahead of the curve of the research, which it's never a good place to be.
Hmm.
It's very similar to entrepreneurship. You don't want to be an early adapter if you really intend to finish. There was a degree of early adapted, not enough research developed in the area that I wanted to get into.
Yeah.
So I found that I made a choice, I made a difficult choice to go into something that would be much more developed, but I still chose corporate entrepreneurship and servant leadership, two concepts that had no correlation with one another, studied in any way before. So I kind of stayed true the idea of making something useful, but not something impossible.
And it sounds like those are both topics you were passionate about, right? The servant
Yes.
leadership that you learned through the program, and then the intrapreneurship and sort of some of your work life outside of the institution as
Very good
well.
question, Sean. I actually asked a bunch of people, like, what are some of the criteria that people think about when you choose a topic? And the thing that I concluded, and it could be different from different people, was I wanted to be curious about them.
Hmm.
It was not even that I was familiar with them, to be honest, at the time that much, but I was curious about them. It was a topic that I could hyper fixate on.
Yeah.
And that carried me through chapter two.
Oh, I love it. That's really
Yeah.
good. And then how was your dissertation committee formed? How long did that take for you? And did
Pretty
you have to
fast.
write?
I think Dr. Renneker just chose people, and I found out. And one of them happened to be the person that full circle. After God, Dr. Renneker took him aside, asked him, "Hey, by the way, I'm Muslim and I don't belong here." I had a full-on like emotional response to our conversation, not in front of his face, but then I went to the bathroom, shed a few tears. I was overwhelmed, and saw one of my committee members, Julia, Dr. Wiener, in there. And we had a very deep and thoughtful, caring. She basically reassured me that I'm good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And her reassurance and then her being without me knowing on my committee, I mean,
Yeah.
it was very meaningful.
No, that's great. And I have to ask, so with your dissertation, you did end up going down the quantitative route. Was that something that you had sort of pre-planned, or did you really let that naturally emerge from the research question?
Well, the kosher response is no, it just happened. But in reality, no, I really wanted it quantitative. I
Yeah,
just really
yeah.
wanted it. I mean, stats was somewhat easy for me. Um, at least I had that engineering background to
Hmm.
fall into knowing that there's a way to figure it out. And qualitative seemed out of character for me. Let's be honest.
Hmm.
I knew myself enough to know qualitative and the abstraction, the design abstraction behind it might introduce a lot of emotional, personal doubts in me.
Hmm.
That might not be something I could. I'm the type of person that if something is not concrete enough, discrete enough,
Hmm.
and discrete in the form of frequency domain,
Yeah.
it's hard to move on.
Got it. The irony is you've done so many of these interviews and you often do this in your work life. So yeah, you, you're leaning a lot more towards qualitative than one might expect. But
For sure.
yeah,
For
but for this
sure.
particular dissertation, yeah, that was a good idea. So tell me about the dissertation writing experience. So was the unstructured nature of being out of the classwork and not having the same support structure of your cohort peers talking all the time, is that difficult for you or not?
It was very difficult for me, especially when life happens. There is a degree of you are behind 1 week and you first panic, and then you kind of start to feel like, oh, it's okay, and then you start to kind of have this panic going lower and lower and lower into your like you get into what they call in polyvagal theory dorsal state. You
Hmm.
start to become a little numb to how late you are. There's this kind of a unclosed loop in the back of your mind, but there's a
Hmm.
sense of numbness and escape attached to it. And the more time you're away from your deadline, the worse it is to go come back to it. And I think having that sense of community, and I think I did tell you about Accountability Pod,
Hmm.
but I'm going to repeat it here. I think that what we did eventually, me and two other cohort members, I started this thing called Accountability Pod. We were meeting together to go through writing independently in silence for a duration of 25 minutes spurts, and then coming back together to check in with each other. And that way we kept each other accountable on Fridays for 2 hours. And that created momentum for us and community, to be honest. It's good to hear other people are also like confused and you tell them you're confused. And that sense of community really helped push us forward.
Yeah. So how did you overcome those time periods where you were stepping away for your dissertation
Mm.
for weeks at a time, and how difficult was it to come back to it? And what was your strategy other than maybe, using your accountability partners to help?
I think What I did that I'm proud of is I kept in touch with Dr. Reneker, my dissertation chair.
Hmm.
There were moments that I was very honest about my mental health, for instance. So I would always keep him in the loop,
Hmm.
even if it felt shameful when I was worried about his judgment and what he thinks of me. It was better than just ghosting him
Yeah.
or not, initiating contact.
Hmm.
So I think keeping professors in the loop and keeping yourself in a sense of, well, I'm not completely detached from
Hmm.
this.
Hmm.
At least there is this one person that is there that I can talk to. And he did have a coaching session with me at some point to help me navigate some of the emotional things that were going on in my life at the time.
No, that's great.
I
That's
had a
great.
loss in family, so I was going through extensive amount of grief.
Mm.
And it was very hard to be thinking about anything else. And it was one of the darkest times of my life. And he was there for me by reassuring me.
No, that's great. That's great. One of the tips I would give as well is that when I found myself stepping away as well is opening up the dissertation again and writing the dedication and the acknowledgments because it
Yeah.
always grounded me and brought me back to why I was doing the work that I was doing. So just to think about my kids, think about my wife, my extended family, my cohort peers, just rewriting that section because it comes so naturally, or going back into chapter two and looking for more research on the topic, right? Something where you weren't having to necessarily write, but just doing some research to look for new information in your given area. Like in my dissertation topic, it was remote and virtual teams in the middle of COVID. So new
Hmm.
research was emerging daily, almost
Yeah.
daily on remote teams and then how it was perpetuating throughout here in the US at least. So yeah, those are two good
Did
tips.
you write that the dedication a few times?
Many times, many
Really?
times.
That's
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
Did
indeed.
it, depending on how nice your wife was, that day, did her name appear and disappear?
No comment, but
That's
uh,
amazing.
yeah. So
It's
tell
like
me
kids. It's
about
like not today.
yeah. So tell me about SurveyMonkey. So you use SurveyMonkey for your quantitative and
Yes.
the SurveyMonkey audience. What was your experience with that, and was it a good tool to use? And when I saw the number of participants that
Yeah.
you had for your study, I immediately thought, gosh, it's so difficult to find participants, and what mechanism did you use? And so tell me about that and how strong.
Yeah, I mean, so I initially had my sample came out of a population within the Whole Foods market, but unfortunately, Whole Foods was bought by Amazon at the time,
Mhm.
and John Mackey, the CEO, is a good friend of ours. So that situation really changed the political change in and the leadership change really made me want to find something super fast. And Dr.
Mhm.
Reneker actually brought up crowdsourcing tools
Yeah.
and I looked into them and I really like SuperMonkey Audience for specifically one reason. There was a lot of research about how incentivizing the people to be responding to these changes, the response quality. And one thing about SuperMonkey Audience that was interesting to me, which I thought it would provide a lot of value for academia, was the fact that they don't receive payment. They actually get donations without directly receiving it allocated to their charities. So when you do a survey, you choose a charity, they send the money directly to them instead of you receiving compensation.
Mm,
So to me, that took it a little bit, it changed the incentive system a little bit and made it softer.
I love that idea.
So I really like Super Monkey Audience. Well, the other thing is there's a lot of good filtering mechanism. You can really, really choose your. I mean, it gets pricier the more,
Hmm.
and it's not just pricier. But what I found out was that you don't get as many people if you're extremely honing down on the exact audience you want.
Right.
So you have to be mindful of. It needs to be large enough for them to have enough numbers. But yeah, the support system was pretty good.
Oh, that's great.
My I don't know if you read that in there, but actually the my survey went out and then it shut down randomly. And then they recreated it. But then when they recreated it, they changed the logic
Oh,
design. So instead of questions being required, my demographics being required, it became optional.
Ooh.
So I lost a good portion of the responses.
Mm-hmm.
But I still had 160, I think 6 or 8 remaining. I think 166 remaining at the end, or 164. I don't know. You've read my dissertation
That's right. Yeah.
more recently.
Right. No, that's great. So, how long from start to finish do you recall that your dissertation took from committee forming to eventually making it to the defense?
Committee forming, it was pretty fast. I think once I passed the IRB,
Hmm.
it was a matter of 4 months, 5 months. So it was pretty
Wow.
fast.
So you
I
never
think
had
once
any
you're done with
doubts?
that, it's pretty fast.
Yeah. So you never had any doubts creeping in of finishing? You were set on the goal?
I think this is after the whole coming out of grief and then having the accountability pod. We had each other's back. I I had a moment with Melanie, Dr. Texidor, and we had this conversation about surrender.
Hmm.
I was telling her I'm kind of imagining these troubles as I'm putting them in front of this large door and asking Jesus to take it on.
Hmm.
And she had a very similar experience. And I said, we both need to just let go and surrender. This is not our process. This is not our plan. And that really changed things.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Now, when you made it to the proposal seminar, any major changes that came out of it? Were you dreading or intimidated by the proposal seminar? Because that differs a little bit from the defense, seeing
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
can have extra participants on.
I took it on as a I have this general disposition towards the speeches or just presentations and everything. It's like I go in thinking they're good friends of mine.
Hmm.
My attitude doesn't change significantly from different contexts. Like I go in, this is gonna be fun, we're gonna like each other,
Yeah, yeah.
and we are all on the same side. And whatever you say, if I agree, well, thank you for that suggestion. I really
Mhm.
want that feedback. But
Yep.
if it is kind of too much work, I'll be honest, this is out of scope. So I was very good at pushing back, but I think that a lot of times when I was pushing back, they were laughing because they. So it was a very human experience.
Oh, that's
It
great.
wasn't combative, it wasn't formal, it was very honest.
And does that the same go for the dissertation defense? What was your prep like for that, I guess, for others that might be watching or listening to this? How did you prepare
Mm.
for your defense?
So first of all, I think a lot of people say the proposal defense and the final defense is not very much about the presentation and don't. But what I did actually, which was very helpful, was every time I had to design a slide, it was exactly what I was studying. So I didn't create my slides at the end.
Hmm.
Every subject that I was putting on, it was exactly what I was studying to prepare myself for. And so it didn't feel like a byproduct, or it didn't feel like a kind of something that came out of it, just putting it together and calling it a presentation, but it was a byproduct of every step of the process for me.
Mm.
So it was rather easier to prepare that way. But I also think that I had my presentation memorized. And I have a memory of actually going for a walk around the Mercer Lake, around where we live. And I saw a lot of ducks, and I actually found them as great audience because they were very loud. And I gave my entire presentation without slides in front of them
Come on.
for my pro. Yeah, I did.
Well,
And
I
people
love
were
it.
like hiking behind me or like really,
Yeah,
really
yeah,
loud
yeah.
by
That's
me.
what I was thinking.
It's like, I was like, if I can do it here, whatever intimidation would be in that call. But then I really got to know the one committee member I didn't know, and she was such a wonderful person. So
Hmm.
the
Hmm.
defense was easier. I think humanizing your committee is very helpful.
Yeah,
But I also think that really having the presentation part down, it gives you so much confidence to go into because you judging yourself more than they're judging you.
that's right. That's right. Because if you start to slip up or stumble,
Yes,
then you lose your
yes.
confidence and things can really
And
go
then
sideways.
it goes south pretty
Yeah. Yeah.
fast.
Yeah, my tip there would be I recorded myself on Zoom with video, exactly like
Nice.
our interview now, and I would find myself through those transitions of the slides. If there were
Yeah.
areas where I was ad-libbing too much, stumbling over words, didn't feel comfortable, I knew that those were areas for me to refocus right before my next preparation on Zoom again.
That's a fantastic idea, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
The other
So
thing that I did was that I put all of my dissertation and research and everything in ChatGPT, and I asked it to give me a set of questions,
mm,
as if thinking through the committee's lens, right? And I prepared those questions extensively, and then I asked it to quiz me. So I would like use the talk function to respond, and I ask it to tell me what areas could I improve upon to be a better academic.
I love it. I love it. That's
So
the
the verbiage in academia matters, really.
You're right. You're right. That's the beauty of AI now is I don't know if you saw out on LinkedIn, I just in a little bit of time using the Lovable AI kind of no code program, I was able
Yeah.
to develop a defense simulator with three
What?
different dissertation committees and personas. So I'll
That's
put it
super cool.
in the comments to this YouTube video, but you should check it out on LinkedIn as well. I have the link to it and I created it probably maybe in an hour. But yeah, you'll check it out. It simulates basically what you did and having
Yeah.
to, use ChatGPT for that. So when you were going through the defense, at what point did you realize, oh my goodness, I think I passed, like I'm answering their questions pretty confidently, like the mood is changing to really collegial and
hmm
supportive? And was there a moment during the defense, or were you actually still nervous when you finished?
I mean, I was so overwhelmed by gratitude with the people present in there, to be honest. Like, there were no moment of shifting. I know that it's a common experience for they came in knowing who I am because we had a very emotional proposal. Um, we actually all cried at the end of it, but like there was a lot of sense of we want the best for you, and they were very kind. I was so lucky and grateful for my committee being so they asked very hard questions,
Hmm.
but that came also from love.
Sure.
So I didn't have that shift. Was I sure it's the pass? Absolutely not. I was worried about
Hmm.
what kind of changes they're going to propose because there were areas that I had to go against their recommendation
Hmm.
because of feasibility
Right.
with SurveyMonkey audience on very small margins. And I was worried if that would be a problem or
Right.
not. And just, but I had very good rationales prepared. So I think what people need to know and learn from this is what people don't understand is debate is a part of getting a PhD. Learning how to effectively debate and have showcase your critical thinking and your rationality
Hmm.
behind a decision requires preparation. Really having a rationale for a decision very coherently formulated and prepared is a very important part of it. And thinking of what ifs. What if they come back with this question? What if
Hmm.
they poke holes at this rationale? And having more of those ideas prepared really helps with having that conversation without just acting from a place of ego and saying, hey, you got to take it.
Yeah, and that point about ego is a good point because remembering that this was for you a 4-month process to write your dissertation. This is not
Yeah.
a lifelong journey of a research project
No,
where you've committed your entire, scholarly career to. So you realize the weaknesses, the limitations. That's part of the beauty of the dissertation
yes.
process is you can fall back on that and say, those are wonderful, segues and transitions for new research to develop in this area.
100%. And they, 9 out of 10 times, I mean, there are people that are going to be not as easy, but 9 out of 10 times, they really want you to do well.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
not out to get you. And I know that you cannot contact them in advance, so there is a degree of firewall between you and your committee.
Hmm.
But at the same time, there is no firewall between you and your dissertation chair. So it is
True.
good to keep on contact and making sure that you check with what ifs with them.
Yeah. So you pass. So what happens in the immediate aftermath? Do you and your husband go out to eat and celebrate? Who were the first phone calls you made?
I took a very long nap. I was like not
Are you
very.
an introvert? Yeah, yeah,
I exhausted emotionally and
yeah.
physically. It was like I had so many sleepless nights prior to it that it was one of the most peaceful naps I've had. So
That's incredible.
to me, that was a celebration.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's great. So how do you relate to your dissertation now? Do you still think, are you really proud of the work that you did? And are you trying to take that forward in any way?
Um, yes. So there are parts of it that actually shaped who I am, and I think back to the identity thing that I abandoned
Mhm.
at some point. I think your identity is very much of a, so because my research was so focused on Christ, and servant leadership through his lens, and how innovation comes from that,
Mhm.
how creation comes from that, how life comes from that. And a very, very deeply spiritual sense is changing me.
Mm.
In a tangible work way, I'm working with Columbia University right now, and you're running this cohort, accelerated cohorts for the founders to go through entrepreneurship.
Mhm.
And I really help them develop servant leadership as a way of, and I specifically different dimensions of servant leadership and how that could help their products to be better. I'm judging one of their pitch competitions that is very huge soon, April 9th. I don't know how many days left. But I'm using some of these principles of servant leadership without even calling it servant leadership
Mhm.
to help them become more empowered in creating and maintaining and sustaining these fantastic businesses that they're creating.
Love it. Love it. So just in reflection about the whole doctoral experience, inclusive of the dissertation, what's one thing that you'd never do again? Anything come to mind?
Oh, I love that question. What would I not do again?
Anything you regret?
Groupthink.
Hmm.
I think there were moments that people would be mad, sad, angry, whatever, about a certain behavior of a certain professor. And a, I'm not the type that would go with that and gossip. I don't like gossiping. It's
Hmm.
against my personal values. However, it would impact my feelings about that individual.
Hmm.
And it was very counterintuitive to the intentions behind academia and everything. So I would probably also exercise moral courage to shut it down.
Hmm.
I didn't do enough of that. I was afraid to not belong.
Right. The whole group dynamic thing
Yeah,
that, I don't
yeah,
want to be the outcast
yeah.
now.
And be like,
Right.
hey, like, maybe this person meant this way. Like,
Hmm.
let's giving them some grace.
Yeah.
I didn't say enough of that. So that's definitely a regret for me.
Yeah. What are you most proud of?
What am I most proud of? Um, Most proud of really staying flexible with some people that sometimes that I felt they're not good for me, and then seeing the best in them.
Hmm.
A lot of times there were moments that I had to really pray about certain individuals that I encountered, not just in my cohort, but generally. And then after a while, I came to realize that I was just projecting some of my own insecurities into them.
Hmm.
So I'm very proud of staying flexible in not labeling people.
Yeah. I've got two final questions for you. What would you want current doctoral students in any program to know?
That doctoral, just the whole journey is a boot camp of shaping who you are. It's not really about the degree. It is about a very intense journey of rediscovering yourself through failing and doubting and coming down to a moment of completely giving up on the whole process
Hmm.
and rising from the ashes. And you rise from the ashes so many times that you're someone complete, a phoenix of a complete caliber, different caliber
Hmm.
once you're done. So no, development program, no coaching, no consulting, no therapist can do what a doctoral program can do of making you better
Love it. That's
or
great.
different at least.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So last question. What did the entire doctoral program, what did it teach you about yourself?
Ooh, thank you. I like that question. What did it teach you about myself? I think it taught me that um, knowledge comes from God and it's endless. And the less ego you have, and the more servant leadership you exercise, and the more deeper you see people as who they really are, the more meaningful life becomes.
Mm, that's great. Good. Well, Sophie, thanks for taking time with me today. This was an awesome conversation. Really loved
I
hearing about your journey.
appreciate you, Sean.
All right. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.